We're on today with Maria Ray, Boston Lloyd's mother, and I appreciate Maria you coming on today.
You remember me competing in the natural shows?
I remember you competing for a long time. I didn't know that they were natural or not. I just remember you competing.
Yeah, I was Miss Natural Universe, and I did like 100. It seemed like every week I was doing shows, but because I'm natural, I was able to just keep competing and winning because I didn't wasn't on anything. These are the natural shows. When I did the NPC, I win. Some I lose or get second, but because I didn't do drugs, I stayed the same. I'm 122 pounds now. I competed and won the over 60 nationals, and I was 122 pounds. So it's just that I lose a few pounds or whatever, and then I get cut. So the difference between drugs and versus natural, that I was able to just jump into different shows.
Well, again, you're talking about night and day, completely different scenarios here.
Completely, yeah, it's completely different because I was the other way and you guys are that way. But I see the importance of some drugs in the bodybuilding world, especially the joint stuff. Now, did you ever do the growth hormone?
I still do it.
You still do growth hormone, and
I still,
you have
I,
no side effects for the hands or anything, or
yeah, but I take 1.5 to 2 units 4 times a week.
uh-huh.
That's it.
Okay.
I just take it on my training days. That's all, and I just do it to help my recovery, and it
Uh-huh.
helps my appetite. But I don't take more than 1.5 to 2 units, and that's it.
And your stomach still stays ripped and hard?
Yeah,
Mm.
I don't know if it's my genetics or what, but I don't get body fat. Like I am at like under 5% body fat almost all year round. No,
Okay.
pretty much all year round. I just stay that way. I've been that way since I was a kid. I
Okay,
mean,
so
competing.
you probably had a high testosterone level. That's why you got in so much trouble and you got in fights or whatever.
Maybe I don't
Well,
know.
I do believe that they should actually test kids and see what's going on and, teach them properly which way they're going. Because I was a teacher before I got into the gym business.
Well, there's DNA tests that people can take right now,
There's DNA.
and it can tell you a lot.
I
That's
saw
pro-
potential in kids that were hyper and very good in sports, but because society, okay, if you can't sit still, you're not going to do good in school. So I think maybe these kids need to be taken out, exercise them, put them back in the classroom because some of them are highly intelligent.
well, again, there's DNA tests right now that people can do on even in adults, but not everybody's willing to do it. I mean, it's not even very expensive, a few $100s, and I've had mine done, and Dave sells them on his website.
Oh, he does. So you get,
Yes, and I know the lady who sells them, and she owns the company, Carmen Tuchenik, and you can get everything tested, all your genes, and know what you're low on and high on and need, or that technology is available now, but it's not everybody has bought into it yet for whatever reason.
well,
But
did you your DNA tested like what your heritage is, like what your
I
background?
know what my heritage is, so that wasn't why I did it. I did it for specifically the health reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I just had it tested last year, just specifically for the health reasons, to find out, how my body is affected by different foods and things like that.
And it really
And
worked. And Dave Palumbo sells it.
yes, he does, and I did learn a lot from it. You
Oh,
know,
I didn't know that he sold that. That's good.
yeah, he sells it on his site, so you can get that.
I'll have to
But
talk about that.
yeah, it's something I'd recommend for anybody who really wants to know what's going on with them, because it will tell you. It's a lot of information. It tells you what drugs your body responds to and what drugs your body is it's not okay with.
Well,
All
does it
kinds of things.
does it just do its steroids, or it does
No, it isn't even about steroids. It's more prescription medications, and it's not a bodybuilding thing. It's a health thing.
I got to ask him about that and what it costs. It sounds like it's
Yeah,
something.
it's more to do with health. It's good for bodybuilders because if you're healthy, you'll probably do better. But it's not that the tests are not based around bodybuilding, or bodybuilding drugs. It's literally every drug, almost every drug you can imagine is on there, even Tylenol. You
Well,
know,
I got to ask Dave about that. 'Cause
yeah, and it tells you about different nutrition things as well.
wow,
So,
that's pretty good.
so it's
Because
definitely something to look into.
I'm sure as a kid you were a handful to your mother too, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I was difficult for my parents because I was very rebellious and I thought I knew everything better than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I wasn't listening. And I moved out at a young age, and all my friends were pro bodybuilders, and that's who I hung out with, and that's who I took my cues from, not my parents. So I learned.
Like Boston used to do crazy stuff too. Like, he peed on the tree in school and he got in trouble for it. Him and Billy, the black kid from Compton, those two were the hell raisers of that school. And they both got in trouble for pissing on a tree. And one of the teachers there said, well, I think he's going to be famous at one time. And I said, why? He goes, well, he doesn't care about anything. He just does what he wants to do. That's been his MO. He just does what he wants to do. Then he almost burned my house down one time. He went to Masashi's with John one time, and he, saw the flames. Well, I came home, and the house started smelling like smoke. He was up in the attic making a fire up in the attic, thinking, "Oh, this is Masashi's. This is what the Chinese or Japanese do. I'll do it." Like, were you mischievous like that? He almost burned my house down because he went to Masashi's.
Hmm. Yeah, I can say I had my issues when I was a kid, but like I said, I grew out of it.
Well, I
But
tried with Boston. He was hard. I remember one time we were in the grocery store, and he was giving me such a hard time. So I said, "You can walk home." So I get in the car, and I had a truck at the time. He's banging on the truck. Let me in. He goes, I want a new house. I want to live somewhere else." I go, "Okay, you want a new place? Get in the car." So we drove to the closest jail, and I bring him in, and I said, "Look, my son wants a new home to live in." I said, "Can you show him the jail cell? Because that's where he's going if he doesn't stop misbehaving." Well, one of the ladies realized who he was. He goes, "Is that the little muscle boy on TV?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Look, he's a straight A student, and he's really bad. I don't know what to do." She goes, "I know what to do." She goes, "We're going to put him in a class with a bunch of bad kids, and you have to sit with the parents of the bad kids, and you guys they talk." So Boston said he was with all the bad kids. He comes out and he goes, "Why the hell am I here, Mom?" He goes, "These kids have done some really lousy things, and they came to me and they asked me why I was in here." And I said, "Well, I got in a fight with my mom, but I'm a straight A student and I'm really a good kid." And he goes, "I don't know why the hell I'm here." And the teacher goes, "I don't know why the hell you're here either." And I said, "You know why the hell you're in there, Boston? So you're not going to be here ever again. You understand?" So I had to stay on top of the kid because I was afraid, oh my God, he's going to get in more trouble. So let him sit with a bunch of badass kids and let him realize,
well, that might have been a good thing for him. Maybe it straightened him out to some
well,
extent.
it made him think as a kid, okay, because I was on top of him.
So let's talk about Boston's like sort of rise to fame and then what happened from there. I know, he first became famous really because he went online showing his steroid usage.
Right.
I think he was probably the first person I ever saw inject himself online. I don't know if he did that for shock value or just to,
Well, that's
because,
Boston. He was honest. This
right,
is what I do. La di da. This is it. And everybody else is doing it, but I'm going to tell you guys what I do. And then he had
right.
that transformation. The transformation is what made him famous. Is when that guy showed. I guess he was in the bathroom and he showed how fat he was, and then next thing you know, he's all muscular, lean, and it looked like he just came out of a hyperbaric chamber. All of a sudden, he looks like wow. And it makes you think, well, if drugs do that, maybe I want to go do that. If I could look like that in 9 months.
Right. But then even after that was when he first was competing. But years later, he built his brand, based around that. And
Yeah,
I remember I just watched an interview where he said the reason he competed again was because he had a bad showing at one show, and he needed to have a good showing because he was getting a bad recognition or whatever for the bad showing he had. So he did that last show that he did just to come in conditioned and to promote his brand. That was his reasoning for doing it.
but remember, he didn't. He got second, and he shouldn't have got second. He really should have won. They marked him down because he was Boston Lloyd who talked about drugs. Um, I'm not sure where is it, North Carolina or something. They gave it to a homeboy, and he should have won, and that really pissed him off. But that's the whole thing about judging. You know,
Well,
how they
there was a lot of politics in bodybuilding, especially back then.
there's still now. It's a lot of politics.
I think it's not as bad as it was, but yeah, there is. And basically, regardless of whether he should have won or not, he came in conditioned, and you know that's what he set out to do, was to make a showing. But it was at that point he was really doing it to promote his business, and his business with coaching and his online websites and things like that.
But he had a love for being on stage. He liked the limelight. Even as a child, he used to get up on. You remember when he was a kid, he got up on stage. I think he might have said that, "Oh, I'm doing this for my business," but he liked the limelight.
In the beginning, yeah, no, you're right. In the beginning, getting on stage, and he said he liked to be on stage,
No, he
but
liked it.
when he competed again, he wanted to. He did it specifically to promote his business, and I think he was getting that recognition from his fame in social media. And this is why even after he stopped competing, I remember he did an interview with Dave Palumbo talking about he did that show and now he's not competing anymore, but he's taking what he called moderate dosages, and he listed off a list of the things he was taking. And in my head, I was like, wow, that's a lot, especially you're not even competing. He
Well,
wasn't even competing anymore, and he
I,
was still taking a lot.
I was thinking either he's kidding us or he's crazy. I couldn't figure out what the heck he was doing. It seemed like that is the obsessive compulsive behavior in his head. He couldn't stop. He said he would go into his gear room. He had a gear room, and he'd just go in there just to take a few things here and there, and he'd start injecting this. And he'd go, oh, maybe I'll take some of that, and maybe I'll take some of that, and then maybe I'll take some of this glucosaminoes for my joints, and I'll inject this and I'll inject that. He had a love for the needle. So he'd walk out of there and his ass hurt so bad he couldn't sit down because he injected himself so bad. So now,
I always wonder how he injected that much stuff.
well, all over the place. He injected himself all the time. And it was a love of the needle because he became obsessed, yeah, with getting big, but he also became obsessed with shooting himself up.
Yeah, but I think this was even past. He was already as big as he was going to get,
Well,
and
he could have got bigger. He overdid himself. When you overdo your drugs like that, your
oh, I
body,
know, but I'm saying he was as big as he had ever been at that point.
right?
He was no longer competing. He had no plans of competing, yet he was still injecting like massive amounts of drugs.
Well, I think he had get big or die trying, but I told you he bought life insurance. A year before he done a $500,000 in life insurance policy for Ariella, and he got her a good size annuity too. I think he had a premonition that he couldn't stop. That he was so messed up, he knew
Well,
in
at
his
that point, he had been on kidney failure for a couple of years at least.
a year and a half. Yeah, when he found out,
Yeah, yeah.
he
So he was on borrowed time.
right, and he knew. Well, the doctors told him, well, if you stop everything right now, you may or may not be able to recoup, but you can live a normal lifestyle. You get the kidney transplant, you go on dialysis, kidney transplant. he was supposed to get the EKG, but he was dragging his feet because he had COVID, and he was making excuses not to take the test, to go back to the doctor to get the EKG, which would have found out about his aorta rupture. So he blamed it on the COVID. Remember, he had COVID in January. He
Hmm.
February 25th. So mid-January, he had COVID. So I think that had something to do with his, you know, the aorta rupture also. He was weakened.
Do you
And
think Boston had a death wish?
yes, absolutely. That's what I told the father. I called the father up 6 weeks prior to his death. And I said, you need to get out here. I said, this kid has that tattoo, get big or die trying. I said, he has a death wish. And he just blew up at me. He said, you don't even know your son. Your son loves life. I said, he can love life all he wants, but he's addicted to these steroids. And if we don't do something, he's going to die. And he just
Well,
did.
they're not only that, but I remember like right towards the end, he took something called Adipose, a fat burning thing.
Oh, he did that 3 or 4 years. That's what killed his kidney, adipotide. That's what
Yeah,
killed.
that's specifically. Well, no, he already had kidney problems before that.
Right, exactly.
So that was just like gasoline on the fire.
Well, he injected it in his kidneys.
I'm saying it was gasoline on the fire, putting that stuff. Like why even do that when you're not competing? Like what's the purpose of it?
Why do people do cocaine? Why do people inject themselves? No, he was injecting himself with oxy. Why do they do that? Because they're addicted. They can't stop. They keep thinking, well, more is better. More is better. But the thing about cocaine and crack and all that other stuff, you look so bad when you're doing it. But here, Bob,
Right.
he was still young. He was a good looking kid. He looked like Superman. So it was hard for me to tell him you're screwing yourself up when he's all big and muscular and looking good. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I don't
Yeah,
know. You
but
try to talk to him. I mean, what would have gotten to him? I often wondered, would a thing with me and his dad and Ariella all and his friends all getting together and saying we don't want to lose you?
well, I know that he had talked about using the HMG and all this stuff to get Ariella pregnant to have uh, the child.
Yeah, and the doctor said he could have never got her pregnant. All the shit he was taking and the kidney failure. There's no
Yeah,
possible way. And I kept telling him, why are you even taking that right
but
now?
at the same time, I understand that he had erectile dysfunction
Right,
from the kidney problems and plus all the stuff he was taking already.
right.
So he wasn't even able to have sex.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, he was taking Melatan, and that's bad for the kidneys too. But that helps in your erections too. Melatan. That's
The tanning stuff.
yeah, that's really bad. You inject it to and you get tan. Really, all the stuff he was doing to get her pregnant was killing him even more off. More drugs in his body.
Well, this is something that I don't think has been talked about, but amongst a few people. But I'm going to bring it up. There was a. It's kind of surprised me actually. At his funeral, which I attended, there was a guy there, was a pallbearer, muscular Italian guy from New Jersey, supposedly one of Boston's friends, and apparently him and Ariella hooked up either at the funeral or prior to that, and they are still together to this day.
You're right. You're
And
right.
I find that kind of ironic, just given the circumstances. I don't know if Boston knew about that or if he was okay with it, or if that's just something she did. I don't know,
I have trouble with it too, but
but
she's
I
she
find it more ironic that she continues to post how much she misses him, but she's been living with this guy all along.
well, he
Which
goes back and forth. I think he's there now, but he was going back and forth to New Jersey, back and forth, staying with her since my son's death.
right, but I mean, like at the funeral, he was with her.
Exactly.
That's kind of fast for someone's who heartbroken and so it, you know, missing the person that you supposedly loved. I don't know. To me, it's very odd.
Well, I'm not saying anything because she's the mother of my grandson, but I don't get to see my grandson. I got X'd out. Um, they would come over, and I felt like she was now my daughter, and he was my son-in-law or something. All of a sudden, he took Boston's place right away, and it was tough because I just lost my son. I don't get another son, but she can get another boyfriend
I expected her being young to eventually move on, but it was like she moved on instantly.
the day of the
And
funeral.
and then, okay, if you're going to move on, do that, but don't sit there and continue to post about how you miss this person and you can't wait to go see them again in heaven or in the next life.
Well, you're not the only one that has said that to me. I've had numerous people text me and they go, "What is this crap with Ariella?" And they all see that she is with Will, and even friends. And I guess she doesn't realize how bad it looks. I don't know if she understands that she shouldn't be posting that if she has Will in her life now.
Well, I kind of wonder about Boston's state of mind if this was going on prior to his death. If he really wanted to die. I mean, as part of it, maybe he just didn't feel useful anymore.
Well, Boston was called, Big Daddy Boston, because he wanted to help everybody financially. He was always like the caretaker in the neighborhood, taking care of the animals, taking care of his friends, taking care of anybody who needed help. So he's in this position that his kidneys are dying, and he's not useful. He's having trouble. He's not feeling good. He can't even play with Jackson the way he used to, because they used to come over, him and Ariella, every almost every day, and use the backyard, and they all had fun and they were playing. And now he's tired and he's sleeping a lot and he doesn't feel good. He's throwing up. And then he's still injecting himself. He even said that. He goes, "I'll throw up. I feel horrible." And then he goes into his room and injects himself. They had 5 dogs. She just got another pit bull before he passed away, and I do believe that the attention needed to be on Boston at that time because he was dying. All the attention needed for him, and and Jackson. But when you have 4 pit bulls and 1 lab, that's a lot, and a cat.
Right.
The attention needed to be on Boston and his problems. Now, the day he died, remember he ate that week, he was eating shitty. Okay, so he had pizza, he had Chinese food, he was eating so crappy, and he didn't take his blood pressure medicine because I think he said he didn't. Ariella said he ran out of it. Well, you don't go buy it right away.
Yeah.
So he was doing shoulder presses in that gym, over the head, which is the worst thing for your heart. Anything overhead. That's where he collapsed. Of course, you eat shitty. Can you imagine all the salt in his system and the high blood pressure? And then when I went to the house, there's a bunch of needles in the kitchen.
Well, he posted something right on social media. I don't remember if it was Facebook or Instagram, probably Instagram. Literally, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks before he passed, saying, "Don't do what I did." And I knew what he meant by that.
Oh my God. He said that.
Yeah. He said, "Don't you do what I did." And I knew exactly what he meant.
That's like a death wish right there.
He
That
knew he was on his way out, and he was basically telling people, don't follow in my footsteps.
he was depressed about something. I felt he was so depressed near the end because he was shooting the oxy. Why do you shoot oxy or take oxy? Because you're in pain. Something was bugging
I was told that Leo had him doing that, or taught him to do it, which
her about that.
I honestly think that he just was so miserable that he just wanted to end his life.
Yeah, I do too. I felt, and that's why I called the father up. There was something, and I told him, something's wrong. Something is not right with this kid. He couldn't even look at me. He'd come to pick Jackson up with Ariella. He couldn't look at me straight in the face. And I thought to myself, he's going to die. He's going to die, and he knows it.
He did know it.
I think he did. I think.
His tune changed right at the end from promoting all this, gear taking and everything to saying, don't do what I did. So
Well,
to me, that was a straight up message.
well, I'm glad you're talking about this because you were in contact with him until the day he died and talking to him. So you know what I was going through, and this is what I felt, that he actually wanted to end his life for some reason. That's how I felt, and if you felt that too, and you were very close to him.
I honestly say, and I hate to have to say this, but I remember seeing the headlines when he died and people acting like they were in shock. And I was not even remotely surprised because I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
Yeah, Larry, I kind of knew it when she called me up and she said they took him to the hospital and she wanted me to babysit Jackson at the house. I was thinking, well, maybe he's got really hurt and maybe this will snap him out of it. But she didn't tell me he wasn't breathing. And she calls me back. She goes, he's dead. I go, why the hell was I here? I should have been in the hospital. But he died in the house. I guess he was 9 minutes there already without breathing.
Well, apparently, he collapsed in the gym.
Right, he collapsed, and she took him
And
home.
instead of going to the emergency room, which he was still alive, and there was a chance, maybe a slight chance, but there was a chance that they could have saved him. Instead of going to the ER, he goes home.
Well, that's probably because he wanted to go. Knowing him, he didn't want to go to the ER because he hates doctors. But he should have been in the ER.
Well, yeah, obviously under those circumstances.
In fact, when he was at the gym, he should have had 911 right there. He had good insurance. He knew he was good. Yeah, I agree. He should have went right to the ER because he collapsed in the living room under the piano, and I guess his legs were up on the couch, and she said she was trying to give him CPR. You know, it's all when I went back. Frankie, um, Boston's one of his best friends, took me there, and it's like I'm seeing my son dead there, 29 years old, and I knew it was going to happen. I just prayed to God that it wouldn't, but I just knew it was. And when you know that your kid, your only child, is going to die, you want to die inside. And ever since he's passed, there hasn't been one day that I feel good. The stock market could go up 1,000 points. I still don't feel good because there's also a little bit of guilt. What could I have done to help him? I mean, here he's my flesh and blood. He came from me, and the connection between a mother and a child, and to know the person that you love more than anybody in this world is going to go, and I didn't know what to do.
Well, Marie, I could just tell you this. I put my own mom through hell when I was young. And God, she tried. And God, there was nothing she could do. What saved me was going to prison. My father told me when I was 20 years old, you're going to end up dead or in prison. And he was dead wrong right. Maybe luckily I ended up in prison because if I didn't end up in prison, I probably would have been dead. Um, that's all I can tell you. I don't think there's anything you could have done.
I don't know. There's
Possibly when he was young, but at that point, he was making his own decisions.
I took him when he was real little to psychologists and psychiatrists. I had men because we were divorced, me and the dad. A lot of men that were lived in the area who were celebrities talked to him. Um, Danny Trejo was our neighbor. Do you remember Danny Trejo? He talked to Boston, and he said, "Hey man, you can't keep yelling at your mom and misbehaving like this." But Boston says, I don't care you're Danny Trejo. I'm Boston Lloyd. So it was hard. And I don't know, maybe him getting up on stage and being like little childhood celebrity, maybe I screwed him up. I don't know what I did. I thought he liked it because he was making money for the kids with cancer. He'd go into the places and give them money and talk to the kids with cancer and tell them there's hope. And he was only a child himself. He had so much love. I mean, you knew the kid. I mean, when he was a little.
I think as a kid, probably he had a lot of fun with that, and he probably didn't even really understand it. But when he became a teenager and he started competing, I think he felt like he had a lot of pressure on him to succeed as a bodybuilder because he identified himself as a bodybuilder and he felt like he had to succeed as a bodybuilder. And in his mind, succeeding meant taking a lot of drugs. And that's what started him down the rabbit hole.
And he
And
was
that,
recognition for everything he was saying about all the drugs he was taking. That was his MO. He tells it like it is, and how many drugs he's taken, so and how many drugs other people are taking.
and I know he meant well, and in because he felt like he was being honest and telling what the pros did. But I don't. I believe there's some pros probably did things like that, but not all pros.
They were buying it from the forum, so they were getting it from his stash. You know,
Yeah, I'm saying some pros probably do push the push it like that, and but I don't. I honestly don't know too many people that went to the extremes that he did personally. Not
no.
even top competitors.
Or you think they keep it hush hush, and he was just tells it like it is? Because I think a lot.
I get again. It was very quiet when I was coming up, and people didn't talk about it. In the '90s, people got bigger. They started taking more drugs. It got a little bit more known. When the boards and the social media came out, it got more known. And yeah, there were people that were. I trained with Nasser, and Nasser killed himself too, with massive amounts of drugs and synthol.
At what age?
I want to say he was like 40. I don't know his exact age, but I trained with him for a contest prep.
Now that synth
And
pretty nasty too.
so Nasser comes to me and tells me one night after a training session, he says, the synthol is spreading through my body like a cancer. And it's created so much scar tissue. And I'm having all this deep tissue work to try to break it up. But the scar tissue is spreading through my body like a cancer.
Oh my
And the next morning we meet up for a training session. And he shakes his bicep and he flexes it and he says, I injected it here, here, and here. And that's when I knew that he wasn't playing with a full deck. I'm like thinking to myself, last night you told me this is killing you. And today you're telling me you showed me where you had just injected your bicep 3 different places. And Nasser was pushing me to take more and more drugs. So yeah, I think some bodybuilders in the '90s were pushing the drugs um, way more than they probably needed to. Way more than they needed to. I don't know if it actually did more for them. Um, I've known some people that have taken massive amounts, but I've never known anybody that took it that amounts for the long period of time. I know people have taken large dosages for getting ready for a competition, but not all the time for year in year out. I mean, he did this for years.
Is it
I'm talking from the time he started
he
till
couldn't
his death. It was at least 8 years of pushing those drugs like that.
he couldn't stop.
Yeah, he couldn't stop.
He could not stop. That's why I think steroids is an addictive drug, just like cocaine.
I don't know if it is because like I have personally no desire to inject. I hate taking shots.
Well,
Like
you
I literally fucking hate taking them. I'm so sick of shots. The only shot I take is like a half a cc of testosterone and a half a cc of NPP with an insulin needle.
Hmm.
But like I will not stick a big needle in me anymore. I just I
You
just can't stand it.
you might not be obsessive compulsive behavior because you've been doing this for 40 years, but you do have a temper now. If you take steroids, it's going to increase the temper. Now that would change the chemicals in your brain. So then it is an addictive thing because it is affecting your brain. If you could get more aggressive, then it's changing the chemicals in your brain chemistry.
Oh, I definitely believe that is true. But like I said, I don't take enough to put myself in that situation.
Right, because you're not obsessive compulsive. You do have a temper, but you're not obsessive compulsive.
No, I've never been addicted to anything. I remember like when I started bodybuilding, I was actually smoking pot, and I met this kid. He was in my special ed class. I think
Oh,
I was
special ed.
yeah. I had dyslexia, and this kid was I think I was 12. No, I was 13, and he was 12, and he was like a little baby Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was smoking pot at the time, and he was bodybuilding, and he got me into bodybuilding, and I got him into smoking pot. And shortly after I started bodybuilding, I decided that the pot wasn't good for me for my bodybuilding, so I just stopped. And I remember seeing him a few years later, maybe 3 or 4 years later, on a bus, and I didn't even recognize him. He was so skinny, and he looked at me. He goes, "Wow, you got big." And I said, "You got so skinny." So I went all into bodybuilding and stopped all drugs, and he went all into drugs and became a full blown drug addict. So I think some people are just they're prone to that.
Right.
Uh, like you, I don't, I've never had that. I could take it or leave it.
Like John had the obsessive compulsive with the drugs, but now he's into God. So now, if you ever talk to John, everything's about God and the Lord and praying. So he took that one addiction to another addiction.
And that's good that he has that because he probably needs that
Oh no,
to 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 stay clean.
right, right, to stay clean, to not do what he did. But he can't even lift his arms over his head that he screwed his shoulders up so bad. And if you ever look, remember he always walked with a limp because he ripped his knees, his quads. He's had a lot of surgeries on elbows, two elbows, shoulders, and both knees. The ligaments and tendons came off of his kneecap, and his calf went down, and his quad ripped up, both knees. He was doing jujitsu, so he had a lot of injuries from doing the drugs and the cocaine. Um, but he changed his life around. He's not doing it, just the TRT, and he's into God, which you're right, it's probably a very good thing if you have that obsessive compulsive personality. Now,
Yeah,
I don't have an obsessive compulsive personality. I could either win or lose. It didn't bother me. I just like to just get. My whole thing is I like to pose. If you remember, I did the dancing and stuff.
mm-hmm.
But no. Well, you're lucky you don't have that because you're 50. You'll be 58, and you're still training heavy, which is remarkable because a lot of people can't train heavy. You can't even lift their arms over their head. And you were a pro, right? Um,
No, I never made pro. I won the USA when I was 18, but they didn't give a pro card out at that time for it.
okay.
So I made top five in nationals a couple of times, but I never actually got the pro card.
Oh, because now it's easy to get a pro card.
Easier, yeah.
It is.
Back when I was competing, you had to win your class at nationals to get a pro card. Um, and later it became the overall at the USA. You got a pro card, but they only gave out a few pro cards a year when I was competing. Now there's lots of pro cards given out, so it's different.
It is
But I
different.
wouldn't say it's easy. It's easier because there's all the different divisions.
Right. There's everything. There's
But
bikini.
bodybuilding is still in bodybuilding is still pretty challenging to get a pro card. It's not a
No,
cakewalk.
bodybuilding, right. The bikini. It's funny. There's a lot of bikini girls. When it first came out there, I was judging the Venice shows. I said, "How am I supposed to judge the bikini girl?" Well, the guy judge said, "Well, it's who you want to sleep with first, second, and third." I go, "Well, I don't want to sleep with any of the girls, so how am I supposed to judge this bikini contest?" And then they got their arm out like this, like a wing, and I'm just sticking their butts out. I'm thinking, oh, how does this happen? So then you got bikini, then you have figure, then you have physique because you want to do physique. Bodybuilding is too muscular, so now you do physique. But now the physique girls look like bodybuilders. The figure girls look like physique girls. And the bikini girls look harder and more muscular than bikini girls are. So Boston said to me, because he trained them all, and I'm sure you do, he goes, they're all on stuff. I go, even the bikini girls? He goes, yeah, to get hard, they do drugs.
Yeah, I know this for a fact. They do like Anavar, clenbuterol just to get conditioned.
The bikini girls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you be in the bikini? That's why we had bikinis, so we wouldn't have to do drugs.
Look, a lot of this is vanity and for social media. Let's face it.
Well, how about the judges decide to judge them down, and bikini has to be soft and fluffy and big boobs or whatever? Or
Well, you think that's what it would be, but the criteria is keeps evolving, and the girls seem to get bigger and harder, and same thing with the guys. Even in the board shorts with the guys, they just up the weight class.
oh yeah, the boy shorts. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
they have the
yeah,
board short, the men's physique, and then in classic physique, they just increase the weight limit because so that guys can get bigger.
right. So the guys are doing the same thing. You got the physique. You got the. Oh, pretty soon they're gonna have a bikini.
Well, the first time I saw board shorts, I thought that was my idea of bikini. You don't have to train your legs.
Hey, what's that other class they have for the big butt girls? The full.
Wellness. Now they have wellness.
When they said wellness, I thought it was maybe Special Olympic type stuff. Wellness, and
The
I said,
wellness girls actually look pretty good because at least they have muscle on them.
well, they don't have to diet down as much, and they have butts.
Oh, they're pretty lean. No,
Yeah.
they're lean now.
So wellness too. So you have all these different classes when it used to be just bodybuilding.
Yeah, when I started, it was just bodybuilding.
Right. Me too. Bodybuilding.
That's why again there's so many pro cards given out, but not in bodybuilding. It's in all these other divisions. And in like the bikini class, you can get a pro card in like 5 different divisions, or I'm sorry, like all the divisions get weight class winners get pro cards, and even second place and sometimes third place even gets a pro card.
Now I've done figure, physique, and bodybuilding. I do all three. So I'll just do all three of them and see how I do. But for some reason, I do better in the bodybuilding because I'm always come in hard or lean and beat out.
I think you're naturally lean like I am, and maybe that's partially genetics and partially just because we've been just training our whole life.
Yeah,
Like
no,
I,
it's a genetic thing. Everybody thought I was a boy growing up. I had to grow my hair out, and I used to fight with the teachers. They always stuck me in the boys one. So it's a
yeah,
genetic thing.
like I've been lean since I started training. In my
Yeah,
first contest, I was 16 and I was shredded, and I've always been like that. It's
yeah.
never changed.
I never get over like 125, except when I was babysitting Jackson and I was eating his snacks. I got up to about 130 something, and I was eating the kids' pizza and snacks. Oh man, I gained a few pounds.
Well, we've covered quite a lot of information today.
Yeah, we did. I
Uh,
just want to talk about the movie coming out, and since you're in the movie,
yeah,
so I just want to talk to Get Big or Die Trying. Larry is in it too, a good part of it because he's Boston's, and Tori. They talked all the time. But in this, it's his life history from the beginning as a 5-year-old to the end when he died, from A to Z and what he was going through. You will see him talking through the grave through his YouTube videos. So you'll be snapshots of Boston's YouTube video when he said he had enough of the doctors, enough of everything, and fuck life. And he was going to do anything he wanted to and just started shooting himself up. And you'll hear him say it himself. So, with everything Boston's saying through his YouTube videos, we have a psychologist, psychiatrist, and different doctors breaking it down as what he was thinking or what the hell he wasn't thinking. So, it is a eye opener. It's the life story of Boston Lloyd from beginning to end. And thank you, Larry, for being in there. And thank you for interviewing me today.
I appreciate it. Like I said, Boston was a good friend of mine, and this whole thing is tragic, but I do think it was a wake up call for people, and hopefully a lot of people will take heed and do what Boston said in the end: is don't follow my footsteps, don't do what I did.
That's a very powerful thing. When you tell me that, I just wanted to cry because as the when you tell me that, that's really he was reaching out. And then I never looked at these YouTube videos because sometimes it was really hard. But he got me in my sleep, and he said, "Mom, I want you to do this. I want you to take my YouTube videos and I want you to make a movie out of it." And he said, "I want Billy to do the music." So he's the one that's been guiding me who's going to be in the movie, who's going to be in the documentary. And it's like a mother's love for her son, but he comes to me and tells me what he wants. It's an unbelievable feeling. And I just hope that people go out and watch this and learn from it. So get
I
big, die trying will be coming out in 2 weeks. And when it does, I'll tell you, and we'll be giving you the movie.
I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out. Um, and again, I'm sorry about everything that happened. It's I know it's hard on everybody, but it was hardest on you probably more than anybody. And of course, John was tore up about it as well.
Yeah, he was the love of both of us alive. He's everything. And Jackson, had a dad. And Ariella, I mean, I think she missed him. I don't know why she did what she did. Maybe it was to find somebody for Jackson right away. So Jackson had a daddy, without any pain. I don't know what her reasoning was, but I don't have a grandson either. And I don't have a son. But I'm gonna keep going so this doesn't happen to maybe somebody else. And I thank you so much for putting me on here and helping me out with the documentary movie. I'm sure Boston would be very happy that you were a big part of this.
Well, I feel like I kind of owed it to him. I looked at him. He was like my little brother,
Yeah,
and yeah, I don't know what else to say. I wish there was more I could have done as well.
it's like both of us want to cry right now. It's tough when somebody is so nice and as big as life as he is. We have to do something in honor of his name. That we loved him so much. We're honoring him. We will honor his
Well,
legacy
that's definitely come
of
through in
what
this
he did.
interview, and I'm sure in the documentary as well. So I'm sure people are going to watch it, and they're not going to forget.
Yeah. Well, thank you for putting me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sorry it's so hard, but
Yeah, it
it's
is hard right now, but I thank you for telling me that about Boston because I knew that how he was feeling near the end, and I'm glad that you understand. We both understand where he was coming from.
yeah, definitely. All right.
All
Well,
right,
I appreciate everything,
all right. Thank you.
and we'll stay in touch.